you and I are responsible for the poverty of people, right? നമ്മുടെ എല്ലാവരുടെയും വീട്ടിൽ നമുക്ക് ആവശ്യത്തിനേക്കാൾ അധികം ഈ സംസാരിക്കുന്ന അച്ഛനും ഇവിടെ ഇരിക്കുന്നതായിട്ടുള്ള നമ്മളെല്ലാവരും നമുക്ക് ആവശ്യത്തിനേക്കാൾ അധികം ഉള്ളവരാണ് നമ്മൾ ഇവിടെ ഇരിക്കുന്ന നമ്മളെല്ലാവരും. ആണോ? അല്ലെന്ന് പറയാൻ പറ്റില്ല. അതിന്റെ ആവശ്യം നമുക്കുണ്ടോ?
നമ്മുടെ രാജ്യത്തിലല്ല ഇവിടെ വന്ന് നമ്മൾ കഷ്ടപ്പെട്ട് നിൽക്കുന്ന സമയത്ത്
അല്ലല്ല, പോയിന്റ് എന്ന് പറയുന്നത് what I'm trying to say is when we say about poverty, right, when we say about poverty, when we accumulate so much, isn't that a big sin that we are doing? Let us be very critical about ourselves. God wanted, and that is the reason why the Old Testament, when we see, there was a Sabbath, right? After every 7 years, on the 25th year, a jubilee to be celebrated, and that jubilee was not only for the people, it was also for the land. That was God's concept, right? God wanted everything to be free. Why the jubilee is being celebrated? If there are any bond slaves, if there are any servants, they all have to be set free. The land, it should not be cultivated. കുറച്ച് സമയം അതിനൊരു ആശ്വാസം കൊടുക്ക്, അതിനൊരു സമാധാനം കൊടുക്ക്, right? For everything God says, അപ്പം how is that possible? When those people who have something, they give it to somebody else, only then that is possible. But that jubilee is never been celebrated, right? That concept, though God had man in his knowledge, it was very difficult for him to do that. So who's responsible for the suffering? We cannot blame God for the suffering, right? For everything that is happening out over here, we are the ones who are to be blamed. God has given us the knowledge, God has given us the intellect, God has given us everything that we can do. But how much far are we doing it is a question that we need to ask. Right? And God has always been a compassionate God. Always been a compassionate. As I was looking through this particular topic, there's a beautiful saying, there is a quote by Dorothy Sayers. I just read that to you, and that I really loved that quote that she made, and it brings in a little bit of perspective. She's written a book called Creed or Chaos. Okay, and in this book, she writes this way: for whatever reason, God chose to make man as he is, limited and suffering and subject to sorrows and death. Now this is something. He had the honesty and courage to take his own medicine. Right? God did not send his son in some other form. He sent his son in the same form that he had created as a man, right? And whatever game he's playing with his creation, he has kept his own rules and played fair, right? He can exact nothing from man that he has not exacted from himself. He has himself gone through the whole of human experience, from the trivial irritations of family life and the cramping restrictions of hard work and lack of money, to the worst horrors of pain and humiliation, defeat, despair and death. When he was a man, he played the man. He was born in poverty, died in disgrace, and thought it well worthwhile. Right? So one thing that we need to understand is that God never makes himself away from suffering. Right? And this is something no other religion can say. You take any other religion, in no other religion you find their God going through a hardship or a suffering or a trouble. Right? All the gods are up there. It is the humans who suffer. They, with their magical powers, they do certain things and they go. But only in Christianity will you find a God who was ready to come down on this earth and to go through and endure all the sufferings that we have gone, because he wants to show us that he is a compassionate God. And when you said about Noah and all, right, God spoke through Noah to the people out there, but the people were not ready to listen. God spoke through each and every. Why Cain was left? Why Cain was left? It was God has a compassion, and I believe God is a changing God എന്ന് പറയുമ്പോൾ നിങ്ങൾ അതിനെ അതിന്റെ കറക്റ്റ് ലിറ്ററൽ അർത്ഥത്തിൽ എടുക്കല്ല, but I believe he changes when our heart changes. I believe in that.
Like when God, he told Noah that I will not destroy earth and water because Noah said that please do not ever destroy. That's when he got fire and
Yeah.
salt, and then again.
With regard to Abraham pleading for Sodom
Yes.
and Gomorrah.
Yes, but since he
Right?
did not find
So many
it,
cases, so many cases. Now, when you look at the world right now, see, if we just analyze the cruelty that we have done to the nature and to the world. When we say that there are floods coming in Kerala again and again, and who's responsible? Is God responsible for that? The houses that we have built, right? The dams that we have erected, the hills that we have brought down, who's responsible for that? We all did it for our selfish things. And now we put all the blame on God. What's that? Right? So God is always there and He always walks with us in our trouble. Now there are many questions. This is a very debatable question. I know there are many questions. ഒരു കൊച്ചു കുഞ്ഞൻ ജനിക്കുന്നതിന്റെ സമയം തന്നെ മരിക്കുന്നു. അല്ലേ? ആരാണ് തെറ്റ് ചെയ്തത്? We never know. But there are certain things which are way beyond our comprehension. Right? And that is why God says, my thoughts are not your thoughts. My plans are not your plans.
And isn't that a little bit confusing? I expected that question to come from them. Always, even for them or for us also. In the society that we are living. Isn't that a little bit too convenient for us to tell them?
It is not convenient because He is the author. Right? If you believe that He is the author, then it is not convenient. You never understand the plan. Right? You never understand the plan for what it was.
I mean, the entire debate that we are having is written.
See, God's everything was for a greater purpose. It was for a greater purpose. God coming down into this earth, it was not to rule, right? The very first time. It was for a greater purpose. And that greater purpose was crucifixion. That greater purpose was that we be redeemed. Not to rule over this earth. He is the ruler, but He did not send His Son to rule over this earth. It was to redeem each and every one of us. Right? As a father, doesn't He have the, the authority to discipline us when we do something wrong? നമ്മുടെ അപ്പം ചെയ്തില്ല.
I can bring the point to discipline is then suffering.
അല്ല, ഡിസിപ്ലിൻ വരുമ്പോഴാണല്ലോ സഫറിങ് കൂടെ വരുന്നത്. ഡിസിപ്ലിന്റെ ഒരു ഭാഗമാണല്ലോ സഫറിങ്. When you look through the Bible.
No discipline is ever sweet at the time of.
Yeah, ഡിസിപ്ലിൻ ആയതോടാണല്ലോ സഫറിങ് വരുന്നത്. The obeying was also a part of discipline. Yeah, please.
Like what you're told, I believe that the discipline we're talking about is simply the consequence of our own. As simple as that. But from their point of view, I have a question.
Yeah, please.
Then why did God tell the Israelites to kill the outside of that over the land that was used? Then why did God tell them to kill everyone there? And why did the Israelites slave? If our God is compassionate.
And when we are taking this question, it might not seem like currently Israel is Palestine. This question is quite relevant over here. There are many people who have pointed it out. God has told the Bible that this is not.
Yeah, see, that is how we look into the Bible. We cannot take a particular portion and look into the Bible, right? A particular context or a particular verse that he took right now, you cannot take and justify it. We need to take the whole of the Bible. When we look into a context or when we look at a theme in the Bible, we need to take the larger context. And when we look into the larger context of the Bible, we see that the God has always been a compassionate God. He loved His people a lot. He loved His people a lot like anything. And so He says, I am a very jealous God. I am a jealous God. I cannot see my people moving away. I cannot see my people going away because I am a very jealous God. And God did His level best to somehow bring all of them back. Each and every effort was for that. Each and every effort was for that. But we can validate this. And that is how the war is going on right now. The crusades that happened, that also happened with regard to taking the Bible. That it is said in the Bible and so we are doing. But there is nothing different than between the Muslims and the us. Validating us with this thing. The overall theme of the Bible, when we look into it, it never validates these things, but we see a God as a God of compassion, who walks through your life all throughout your life.
So for us, it is
Yeah.
God promised us that He is going to give us a land
അല്ല അവർക്കും milk and honey ഉണ്ടല്ലോ.
So basically, God is telling us that He is taking something from someone and then giving to us. What then God is talking? We are talking about humanity as a whole. God is talking about this context, this Israelites, and then a group of people. So these group of people are what is God doing about these group of people?
And the group of people, they never were set out. No, they were never set out.
So God asked me to kill everyone there.
That was the war that was going on over there. That was happening over there, and that happened. അത് കഴിഞ്ഞിട്ട് അവരുടെ കൂടെ തന്നെ ആയിരുന്നല്ലോ അത് കഴിയുമ്പോൾ. അല്ലേ?
I lost you.
See, God, you need to understand in the Old Testament, right? When we look into the Old Testament, we see that there were cultural wars, there were the wars that were taking place with regard to nation, and there God wanted His people to succeed. God wanted His people to come up and win a certain situation. During those times, God was always telling the people, and He was fighting for the people. Right? We find a God who was fighting for the people, and it was because the people of that particular land, right? He wanted this particular people to reach a certain extent. He reach a land which flowed with milk and honey, and it was in order to reach there were many people out there over there, right? And we find that all those people out there over there, they were not worshipping the one true God, or there were many other practices that were going on over there, and so He wanted people to go over there. There needs to be a change and a reformation. പക്ഷെങ്കിൽ ഓൾഡ് ടെസ്റ്റമെന്റിൽ നടക്കുന്ന യുദ്ധങ്ങളും അതിൽ നിന്ന് when you come to the New Testament, we find that God has not changed. God remains one and the same. But the way that God is looking at the people and wanting people to bring back has changed. Right? Jesus sword എടുക്കുമ്പോഴും we don't see Jesus telling people to go and take the sword. He's asking him to put it down. Right? When the disciples ask, you are not being accepted over here. Jesus doesn't say that, okay, I'll do it. Right? Right? So you need to understand, see the whole of the Bible, we need to understand that it happened in a cultural setup. Right? It happened in a cultural setup. And these wars were all there. The bloodshed was all there. This all happened. And that is where Jesus comes and brings in and tells, this is what we really want from you all. This is how I'm living, and this is how I want you all to live. If that was not, and this all debate will ultimately come with regard to our belief. അവസാനം ബിലീഫാണ്. ബിലീഫ് ഇല്ലെങ്കിൽ ഇതൊന്നുമില്ല. റൈറ്റ്? ഞാൻ കർത്താവിനെ വിശ്വസിക്കുന്നുണ്ടെങ്കിലും ഈ ദൈവത്തെ വിശ്വസിക്കുന്നുണ്ടെങ്കിൽ മാത്രമേ ഇതൊക്കെ വാലിഡ് ആണ്. For any other person, all these things are not valid. Right? ഈ പറയുന്ന ഇവരെല്ലാം പറയുന്നവരും ഇവർ ഇന്ന് അച്ഛൻ പറഞ്ഞതുകൊണ്ട് ഈ പാപം ചെയ്യുന്നവരാണ്. അല്ലെങ്കിൽ അവർ ഈ പാപം ചെയ്യത്തില്ല. Telling all these things, right? So ആരും എന്നോട് പറഞ്ഞു അച്ഛൻ ഞങ്ങൾ ഇതൊക്കെ എങ്ങനെയാ പറയുന്നത്? We don't believe what we are saying. That is correct because we as a group. But why has this field been called up? നമ്മൾ ഒന്ന് ഡിസ്കസ് ചെയ്യണം as to what exactly this God is. നമ്മൾ തന്നെ ഒന്ന് ചില questions. We never question God, right? But I believe it is only through questioning and deeper understanding that we realize who this God really is. Everybody in the Bible, we see that they questioned God. David too questioned God, right? Everybody questioned God. And it is through these questioning and answer that we come to a conclusion and we realize that yes, this God is a God who is always there with us. One theme from the beginning till the end is that this God has never left His people. He's always been there traveling with them. No matter it is the desert, no matter it is the sea, no matter it is the land, no matter it is the disease, wherever it is, the Lord has always been traveling. And that is one aspect that we also need to take in. Our life lo undu etra instances, right, where He has been traveling with us. Right? We have heard so many testimonies of He traveling with us.